The Neolithic Revolution is often seen as a pivotal moment in human history, where we transitioned from a nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyle to settled agricultural societies. But what if this so-called revolution actually set us on a path of inequality, workload, conflict, and health issues? Hunter-gatherers on average worked around 5 hours a day, while today much of the world is clocking in at 40 to 44 hours a week with far less leisure time. If the shift to farming in modern life was meant to be progress, it raises an interesting question. Was the Neolithic Revolution really a game changer we believed it to be, or just an overrated cultural shift? Today, we are uncovering one of humanity's greatest transformations, from wandering nomads to settled civilizations. At what cost did we trade freedom for stability? Let's go back to 12,000 years, when humans relied on hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants for food, the basics for a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Without the knowledge or the means to grow crops or raise animals, they moved frequently, following the changing seasons and the availability of food. This nomadic lifestyle meant they couldn't settle in one place or build permanent homes. Instead, they traveled across vast areas to find enough resources to live. Their travels could sometimes cover up to 500 square miles or 13,000 square kilometers. That's about the size of Jamaica or the US state of Connecticut. These nomadic humans lived during the Pleistocene epoch, which lasted from around 2.6 million years ago to 12,000 years ago. Archaeologically, this period is known as the Paleolithic Age, divided into the early, middle, and late stages. Prehistoric humans adapted to diverse environments, from deserts to tundras, while using natural shelters like caves or constructing temporary huts. Food sources depended on where they lived. Some hunted large animals like mammoths, while others fished or scavenged. Tools helped them process their food, leading to more diverse diets, ultimately allowing them to thrive in many different ecosystems. These nomadic groups were small, usually made up of extended families or bands of up to 100 people. This way of life sustained humanity for thousands of years, until something strange happened. Around 8000 BCE, in places like Melanesia, and even earlier, around 9000 to 7000 BCE, in the Fertile Crescent, a boomerang-shaped region of the Middle East, the Neolithic Revolution emerged. People started figuring out that they could grow their own food by planting seeds instead of just foraging, and by raising animals instead of relying on only hunting. In place of constantly being on the move, these early humans began to settle down in one place. They planted crops like wheat, barley, and rice, depending on what was available in their area. But as we all know, they didn't stop there. They also began domesticating animals like cows, sheep, and goats for meat, milk, and wool. What's fascinating about this revolutionary change is that we're not entirely sure why we began doing this. There are many theories that explain the reason behind the shift in lifestyle, but not one that everyone agrees upon. One of them is the oasis theory, which suggests that as the climate became drier, communities gathered around oases. This close proximity to animals led to their domestication, along with the planting of seeds. There is also a hilly flanks hypothesis that claims that agriculture began in the fertile hills of the Taurus and Zagros Mountains, where the environment naturally supported the domestication of plants and animals. Other theories argue that advances in human thinking encouraged people to settle down, so the reason behind the agricultural revolution is different in different regions. Whatever the reason, everything changed when humans transitioned to agriculture. Suddenly, we had food stability, allowing for permanent homes. No longer needing to constantly move, populations grew, and societies became more complex. Surplus of food led to the development of trade and cultural exchanges because people began to specialize in different crafts and skills. With the advent of agriculture, new technologies and innovations emerged. Tel Abu Huraira, a village along the Euphrates River in modern Syria, revealed large stone tools from around 9700 BCE that were used for grinding grain. Similarly, buildings became more permanent, and cultures began to leave lasting marks on history through art, religion, and architecture. In many ways, this shift set the stage for the civilization we know today. One can say that we left the hunter-gatherer lifestyle for an easier way of living because, on paper, the agricultural lifestyle makes perfect sense. You settle down, live peacefully, and eat. But somehow, we can't help but question the seemingly even equation. Before we dive into the darker side of the Neolithic Revolution, make sure to hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on more fascinating stories from our primitive past. We enjoy challenging the conventional theories about our origins and exploring the mysteries that still puzzle us today. Let's look at our modern bone density compared to that of prehistoric humans. It's simple to assume that the early hunter-gatherers were muscular and strong because they had a different composition from us. But a 2014 research found out the opposite. It states that there are no anatomical reasons why modern humans cannot develop the skeletal strength of prehistoric bones. Human hunter-gatherers from 7,000 years ago had bones as strong as modern orangutans, but farmers from the same region, living 6,000 years later, had much lighter and weaker bones, making them more prone to fractures. The bone mass of these foragers was about 20% greater, similar to what an average person would lose after spending 3 months in weightlessness in space. In simple words, it's physical activity that made them strong. While our 9-to-5 jobs result in less activity, and in turn, high chances of osteoporosis after 30. An interesting fact here is that our bodies are not naturally built to live as long as we do today. If we look back at the Paleolithic era, where the average lifespan was around 35 years old, hunter-gatherers lived active, mobile lives, and their bodies were well adapted to this shorter lifespan. Since they rarely lived beyond 40, they faced fewer age-related issues like menopause, loss of testosterone, or degenerative diseases. Death often came quickly due to external factors like trauma or childbirth complications, but they didn't suffer prolonged aging or chronic diseases. With the Neolithic Revolution, the human lifespan changed. Human life expectancy started rising rapidly over the years, thanks to better healthcare, improved hygiene, healthier lifestyles, more accessible food, and reduced child mortality. We now live much longer than our ancestors did just a few generations ago. In the EU, life expectancy at birth was around 69 years in 1960, and now it has jumped to around 80 years. That's an increase of 2.2 years per decade. If this trend continues, as it has for the past century, babies born in the EU today could live to be around 100. However, as they say, years are being added to our lives. Life is not being added to our years. The increase in life expectancy hasn't necessarily improved the quality of life. Longer lives now come with a high risk of diseases, disabilities, dementia, and advanced aging. A study conducted in the UK has shown 30% of people over 60 developing dementia before they pass away. Plus, the growing elderly population is putting more pressure on economies and social systems, with pensions, healthcare, and social care already taking up 25% of GDP in the EU, and that's likely to increase even more in the future. Several researchers have challenged the assumption that the population explosion following the Neolithic Revolution improved health. Even though diseases of the pre-agricultural period, like trauma and childbirth complications, are uncommon now, death causes have been replaced with other diseases of affluence, such as type 2 diabetes, asthma, coronary heart disease, cerebrovascular disease, peripheral vascular disease, obesity, hypertension, cancer, alcoholism, allergies. The list goes on. The 2011 study, published in the National Library of Medicine, found a trend in 19 of 21 societies. Key issues like reliance on single crops, crop failures, and social inequalities contributed to declining health. And the scenario with high population density? More food means families can support more people, which in turn means dense settlements. Archaeologists have uncovered over a dozen mud brick houses at Çatalhöyük in southern Turkey that are estimated to be 9,500 years old. These homes were tightly packed, with up to 8,000 people possibly living there at one time. Residents had to enter their homes through the roof due to the close arrangement. Imagine if someone catches a contagious disease there. So, the higher population densities meant a higher probability of infections, and consequently, pandemics that have lost millions of lives so far. Over the last 10,000 years, the Neolithic Revolution has sparked major biological changes in humans. And unfortunately, these changes are not positive. The 1995 study of archaeological human remains reveals that the shift from hunting and gathering to agriculture wasn't as beneficial as once thought. Instead, biological anthropologists found that the adaptation of farming led to a decline in both oral and overall health. Prehistoric farmers showed more skeletal and dental issues than foragers, and changes of how they prepared food affected the bones of their skull and face and even their dental structures. Less movement and activity helped cause weaker bone growth. This change also impacted our brain size. Over the past 2 million years, biologists have noted that human brain size generally increased, but the trend reversed about 6,000 years ago. Hunter-gatherers, around 100,000 years ago, had an average brain size of 1,500 cubic centimeters. Their large brains supported complex tasks like tracking animals, foraging, and managing social interactions. With the rise of agriculture, brain size slightly decreased to around 1,450 cubic centimeters. This shift reflects changes in lifestyle and the transition from a nomadic to a settled way of life. Today, our average brain size is about 1,350 cubic centimeters, the smallest it's been in the past 100,000 years. This reduction is associated with a decrease in body size and possibly other factors, like changes in diet and social demands. This next fact might come as a surprise. People in the Paleolithic era were on average slightly taller than today. This is because when agriculture took over during the Neolithic period, around 5,000 to 3,000 BC, average male height dropped significantly from around 5 feet 10 inches down to as short as 5 feet 3 inches. Hunter-gatherer societies like the Nilotic people of Africa, the Inuit of the Arctic, and some Native American tribes were often taller than people living in agricultural communities at the same time. Though some people like Pygmies and San have smaller heights, even less than 5 feet, on average, hunter-gatherers were slightly taller than the average human of today. The height difference are due to several factors. Foraging meant more active lifestyle, paired with physical demands of constantly moving to find food, while our more sedentary and repetitive lifestyles led to shorter stature. Before we continue to uncover the effects of the Neolithic Revolution, take a second to support our channel. Just hit that like button if you're enjoying this video. So we've established that people from the pre-agricultural era were more physically strong and relatively taller than us today. One of the strongest reasons for this variation is diet. With the Neolithic Revolution, societies began to rely on a homogeneous diet, mostly consisting of a single staple crop. Recent data from Murdoch's ethnographic atlas shows that 73% of hunter-gatherer societies got half their calories from meat, including game and fish, whereas modern nutritional recommendations suggest that meat should comprise only a small portion of our diet. Hunter-gatherers had a notable high protein intake, between 19% and 50% of their total energy, compared to modern recommendations, which suggest protein should account for no more than 12% of daily calories. Even so, the diet was rich in fruits and vegetables, often providing much higher levels of essential vitamins and minerals than today's diets. For example, hunter-gatherers typically consumed about twice the calcium found in modern diets, thanks to their greater intake of plant-based foods. Modern guidelines recommend 3 to 5 servings each of fruits and vegetables daily, but this may fall short of what hunter-gatherers consumed. Their high intake of dietary fiber and phytochemicals likely contributed to lower rates of certain cancers, such as colon cancer. Overall, the nutrient density of their diet suggests they had superior levels of many vitamins and minerals compared to what is commonly found in contemporary diets. One of the main reasons people argue in favor of farming is that it's supposed to mean less work and more food. It seems logical that ancient hunter-gatherers would spend more time searching for food or shelter compared to farmers, but research shows this isn't true at all. A 2023 study by the University of Cambridge explored the lifestyle of the Agta, a group of hunter-gatherers in the Philippines. The researchers observed how the Agta people used to spend their time, dividing it between farming, foraging, leisure, childcare, and chores. Surprisingly, the study found that farming reduced leisure time compared to foraging. Farming communities worked about 30 hours a week, while hunter-gatherer communities worked only 20 hours, with women bearing the brunt of this shift. This challenges the long-held belief that agriculture symbolized progress, showing instead that it led to more work and less free time. Foragers could have about 10 more hours of leisure time per week than their farming counterparts. The overall progression to increased working hours, along with a change in social structure, have taken a toll on our health. Our modern societies, with their focus on competition, economic pressures, and social comparison, have led to more stress, mental health issues, and social problems. Looking at the world over the last few centuries, it's easy to assume that humans are naturally inclined to conflict. From wars and genocides to various forms of prejudice, like sexism and racism. But if we dig into our evolutionary history, that wasn't always the case. A 2023 study explored their practices of subsistence, gender division of labor, marriage and post-marital residence patterns, childcare practices, norms of ownership, and the social and political status of men and women to understand the ethos of egalitarianism. What turned out was opposite to what most people think. Instead of rigid hierarchies or dominance, the study found that equality was deeply woven into the daily life of hunter-gatherer groups. Both men and women contributed to survival and decision-making in balanced ways. We might assume that men used to hunt while women took care of the children, but a new discovery changed this perspective about prehistoric gender roles. In 2020, a 9,000-year-old female hunter fossil was discovered from a burial site in the Andes Mountains of South America. This sparked a reanalysis of other burial sites along the area, where more skeletons buried with hunting equipment were found to be female. We're built to cooperate and work together for the common good. Solitary individuals wouldn't have survived long. But what changed? While farming allowed us to grow our populations and advance quickly, it also led to more divided society. As people settled down, wealth began to accumulate unevenly, giving rise to social hierarchies and class distinctions. Those who controlled land and resources held power, while others became dependent, creating a clear line of distinction. With the rise of agriculture also came social and moral injustice, not only among humans, but against something bigger than us, Mother Nature. Pre-agriculture societies lived in closer harmony with their environment. They practiced sustainable hunting and gathering. They only utilized what they needed to maintain ecological balance. This selective approach helped keep animal populations healthy and ecosystems thriving. Certain practices, like extensive fire use or hunting large animals, led to notable changes. For example, overhunting in North America may have contributed to the extinction of many large mammals at the end of the last ice age. Despite these instances, their overall environmental footprint was far smaller than what followed with the rise of agriculture and industrialization. Large-scale agriculture significantly impacted the environment. Deforestation, biodiversity loss, agricultural emissions, carbon footprint, unsustainable farming practices, and whatnot. A major disaster for our environment. So, is the agricultural revolution truly a monumental shift it's often portrayed as? While it undeniably played a crucial role in shaping human history, it's worth questioning whether the trade-offs were worth it. Yes, we gained stability and technological advancement, but we also introduced inequality, environmental degradation, and health challenges that continue to affect us today. In our pursuit of progress, have we traded away our well-being and connection to nature? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Go ahead and check out our other amazing videos that dive into early human history.